Mike Mallet versus Gilbert Burns is the next UFC main event, and this fight has the potential to create the biggest Canadian star in the UFC since Georges St-Pierre. Now, obviously, I'm talking about Mike Mallet, as Gilbert Burns is not Canadian. Now, this fight is the main event of UFC Winnipeg. Overall, the card is not too great. I mean, let's take a look at the card as a whole. Just quickly skim over it. Co-main event, Charles Jourdain, Kyler Phillips. That's actually a good fight. We have the Rat King versus Jai Herbert. That's actually not bad. Jasmine Jasovicius versus Korean Silva. Actually not bad. Thiago Moises, Dennis Bazooka. Okay, I like that. Robert Valentin versus Julien LeBlanc. Tanner Poser. So we got a lot of Canadian talent on this card. Quite a lot of Canadian talent. Gavin Tucker was supposed to be on this card, but he's no longer on it. There's some decent names. Mitch Raposo, Alan Nascimento. This is a fight I would look out for. To bet, especially Alan Nascimento is pretty good in my opinion, but the main event is where I'm looking at. So we have Mike Proper Mallet, who is 13-2-1, the 28th best welterweight according to Tapology, versus Gilbert Dorino Burns, who is the 55th best UFC welterweight according to Tapology. Now, Mike Mallet is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, coming off a win over Kevin Holland. Quite a controversial win, if you ask me. Before that, he KO'd Charles Radke. He beat Trevin Giles, and before that, he suffered his first UFC loss against Neil Magny because he gassed out so bad, but we'll get back to that. Before that, he beat Adam Fuckett via submission 2 years and 9 months ago. Now, Gilbert Burns, on the other hand, we'll go over his resume, but he is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. So literally the exact opposite of Mike Mallet. He's coming off a KO loss to Michael Morales, a decision loss to Sean Brady, a TKO loss to Jack Del Maddalena in the 3rd round. Before that, he lost a decision to Bilal Muhammad on short notice. And before that, he beat Jorge Masvidal 3 years ago via unanimous decision. Now, first thing that really catches my eye is Mike Mallet is a freaking huge favorite at -600, whereas Gilbert Burns is a +390 underdog. Now, if I'm a betting man, I'm probably not going to be betting on this fight just because -600 doesn't make too much sense. Now, if you're going for like a submission or a TKO or a decision, maybe you could get some money there, but overall, this is not where I'm looking for. Now, another thing that strikes out to me, the age difference. Gilbert Burns is 39 years old, 8 months, 4 days, 4 weeks, 1 day. I almost messed that up. I did mess that up. I'm kidding. He's almost 40. He's practically 40. And, if this was light heavyweight or if this was heavyweight, even middleweight, I'd be like, you know what? 40 is not the best, but it's not terrible. Jan Blachowicz, guys have won championships at 40 years old in those higher weight classes. But this is welterweight. This is a small guy division, and we all know the younger guys rule the smaller weight classes. And you see Mike Mallet is only 34 years old, so he's literally at the top of his prime. That's probably why the UFC is trying to push him so hard, because he's a Canadian phenom, and he's only getting older. Trains Team Alpha Male and Niagara Top Team. He was a jiu-jitsu coach at Team Alpha Male. So his jiu-jitsu is pretty good, but is it as good as Gilbert Burns? I'm not sure. Most people are picking Mike Mallet to win by finish by KO, which I think is pretty interesting, because Gilbert Burns, outside of his last fight against Michael Morales and that 3rd round last-ditch effort Hail Mary KO by JDM via a knee to the face, Gilbert Burns doesn't really get KO, doesn't get finished that often. But if we do take a look at Gilbert Burns' resume, I mean, the difference between resume of Gilbert Burns and Mike Mallet is literally night and freaking day. Gilbert Burns has only fought killers his last bunch of fights. Michael Morales, probably the hardest hitting 170er we have ever seen. Sean Brady, probably one of the best jiu-jitsu fighters we have ever seen at welterweight. JDM, one of the best boxers we ever seen. Bilal Muhammad, former champion, cardio king on short notice. And he even, I believe, Gilbert Burns broke an arm or something in that fight. Before that, he beat Jorge, and he actually beat Neil Magny. And then obviously, we all remember his fight of the decade contender against Hamza Chimaev, who is now the 185-pound champion. Now, let's pose this question right here. If Mike Mallet was fighting any of the guys that Gilbert Burns had fought, would he beat them? Probably not. He probably wouldn't beat Michael Morales. He probably wouldn't beat Sean Brady. JDM, I'm not sure. Bilal Muhammad, I'm not sure. But he definitely would not beat Michael Morales, especially this early on in Mike Mallett's career. And, you know, when we look at Mike Mallett's resume, it just is night and day. Kevin Holland, Charles Radke. I mean, you don't have really anybody who stands out outside of Neil Magny and Kevin Holland. But that Neil Magny fight was... he lost that one, right? And Gilbert Burns beat him. Now, when we look at the stats of Gilbert Burns, this is something that really strikes out to me. And it's the fact that his significant strike defense is 52%, meaning roughly 50% of all significant strikes are going to be landing on Gilbert Burns. And if Mike Mallett, who does have some level of power, is landing 50% of his significant strikes, especially to the head, to the body, to the legs, will that be able to KO Gilbert Burns? I think so. If Mike Mallett can pour on some volume here, he could easily rack up some significant strikes on Burns' face and probably get a TKO. But you gotta ask yourself, does Mike Mallett get gassed out like he did against Neil Magny? Now, before we look at Mike Mallett's footage, let's take a look at Gilbert Burns' footage against Michael Morales, because in this fight, Gilbert Burns straight up quit. You know, this is a sign that I don't like in Gilbert Burns, because as he does increase in age, as he does get more money from the UFC, because he's been in the UFC for so long, his effort might not be there, and he might just be coming in for a paycheck. And I think this really shows against Michael Morales. And yes, Michael Morales hits hard, but there are some key signs in this fight that shows that Gilbert Burns, he's not the guy like that fought Chimaev. You know, when he got hit by Chimaev, he doubled down and he bit his mouthpiece and he really swung at Chimaev and he was all heart, all great. Whereas in this fight, you're going to see. You can even see in his face, it's like, it's a look of disgust. It's a look of discomfort. It's a look of, I don't want to be here. It's not a look of anger. It's not a look of, I'm ready to do or die in the octagon. It's more of a thing of just like, this is work. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to survive. I'm going to talk to my family after. It doesn't matter win, lose, or draw. So you see Gilbert Burns here kind of skirting on the outside. That's just not his game. He's not a counter puncher, but he's just a little bit, I don't want to say shy, you know, he's not shy, but he's a little bit scared to enter the range of Morales, and he's trying to bait an overextension from Michael Morales in order to get a counter, maybe that big overhand. Gilbert Burns does like to, you know, get that big overhand going, but he just gets stun locked here because he doesn't know what to do. Nice leg kick from Gilbert Burns there, though. Hard leg kick. Gilbert Burns very heavy on that leg. See, he tried to double up with that lead overhand and didn't work. And that's going to dishearten Gilbert Burns. If he's missing that on Mallett, I think he's going to be like, well, I tried. You know what I mean? Look at that. He tried to extend into that power 2 to try to robble him. Didn't work, and tries to double up on that overhand, but he doesn't get it. And then he gets hit with practically on the guard. Immediately backs up. And look how far he is out of range. Ooh, long. Gilbert Burns trying to fire back in the pocket. He kind of lands there. It's showing some heart, but tries to clobber his way in. Trying to land that counter overhand. Not a very diverse attack from Gilbert Burns right here. It's a lot of overhands. It's a lot of lunging shots, lunging twos, trying to cover distance, but it's just not working. Now, can this work against Mike Mallett? Maybe, but I doubt it. I think Mike Mallett has the ability to keep distance and do his thing. That's kind of sneaky, though, if we go back. So he feints the overhand to get the hands to draw up, and then he looks for the takedown or to double up on another overhand. So it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky, that little sneaky move right there. Ooh, nice uppercut from Morales. And Gilbert Burns trying to swing back here. Gets hit, tries to go for a takedown. Morales strong. Gets taken down. Morales breaks, trying to break the grip. He does break the grip. Now, Gilbert Burns could do this against Mike Mallet because Mike Mallet against Neil Magny severely gassed out when it was in grappling exchanges. But Gilbert Burns doesn't have the best of cardio. I don't know if he's going to be able to really push a pace that Mike Mallet can't sustain. Neil Magny does have great cardio as well, so. And then look at that. They separate from the clinch. 1-2 on the guard. Gilbert Burns cowers over, drop. Gets hit with some hard shots. Gilbert Burns tries to survive, but he just kind of quits a little bit there, you know. But it is Michael Morales. You got to realize that. And maybe I'm, you know, being a little too harsh on Gilbert Burns in this fight just because I did bet money on him. So, you know, that is a real thing. But let me know what guys think. Who wins between Mike Mallet and Gilbert Burns? Do you think we're going to see a new prospect rise out of Canada? I hope we do see a new prospect rise out of Canada because there's not too many male prospects out of Canada. You know, we do have the GOAT, Marc-Andre Barriault, but, you know, maybe his time is coming to an end soon. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Who wins? Who do you want to see win? And are you excited for this card, or do you think it's a stinker? Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. It's been your boy, Dag and May, signing out. Peace.